previously calculated, so I didn't end up adding what was previously cached to it. So probably the simplest thing to do, like you've got your two matrices, transpose matrix B because you want to keep your row major, since we're using C++. Flatten it out into 1D array because that's probably the easiest way to figure out your offsets based on the size. That way you can just rack through basically where your offset is, because once you transpose it, then you're not picking randoms from a long array. That's why you'd probably do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way you can load the data you want each time, because you only want to load the two rows that you're going to be multiplying together for each thread. You probably want to balance that with figure out how big those are going to be, and then balance your number of blocks and threads off of that, so that you ideally want to have, for every thread in the block, you should be able to fit that many rows should fit into the shared memory, so that you're keeping it as local as possible. Because we can't do
I'm
the
sorry,
pad.
I got kind of lost in there.
So
Do you
what
wanna
I'm
draw
saying is,
picture?
I don't want to draw a picture.
You want to draw a picture? Okay.
So we're
So
still
I'm
looking at
kinda
the 2D to 1D,
Yeah.
because
So
mapping
so we're going with the 1D.
mapping that's relatively straightforward, because you're just calculating offsets.
Okay. Okay.
You'd want to break up your threads to shared memory to just hold enough data to calculate each individual section.
Mm-hmm.
And then, since you've got that data in there, you'd figure out what your block size was based on how big those thread shared memories would be. Because you'd probably want to schedule it at least close to that. You don't want to be overrunning it, because I looked it up. The local, if you would overrun the local's global, so it's orders of magnitude slower. If we overrun the registers, which would probably dominate the effect of having, not
Yeah, the global
optimally
is
sized.
horrible. But
So
the
not having
local-
optimally sized warps would probably be less important than having the memory staying in shared.
So, okay, so the thing is that when you overflow, if you overflow local, you go to global, but I don't know how big it is, that cache, how big it is compared to the shared memory, and how fast it is compared to shared memory. Yeah, so if we didn't have to overflow at all,
Because isn't local just, it's cached, but it's physically in,
no,
or is
it's
there's a
in
separate,
a cache.
there's a separate cache?
Yeah, there's a
that's-
cache. There's a cache per SM. Yeah, there's a cache per SM. Let me go here. I have a picture. Yeah, that little thing. And that's it. So there's a cache. So L1. So it's an L1 on the SM.
Okay,
Yeah, so the registers overflow first into that.
so we
And
want to
then-
make sure that we just didn't overflow that.
Right. Yeah, so
But
that's
we
what
can
I was
overflow the
thinking.
registers by that much, and if we overflow more of that, then it's going to go
That's
out
right,
in the
yeah.
global. Okay.
Yeah, and the shared memory is here, so it's also an on-chip. I don't know which one is faster. I'm not sure which one is bigger. Well, it depends on the architecture, but I want to have a sense of that. And because of course, if you overflow local, then you're done because you go to global, and that's a really bad thing. So let me see. So you're suggesting to to not overflow the registers?
Yeah, to make sure that we're keeping all the memory local, like whatever we're putting into shared isn't going to overflow.
And would we use shared memory at all?
Yes, when so each thread is going to cache into the shared memory the two rows that they're going to multiply together. So you put those two rows into shared.
So just normal, like with normal tiling, right? So we
Yes,
put all
normal
the tiles
tiling,
we
but-
need into the shared memory. What do you think, guys? I mean, I'm not sure what I'm missing, but it just seems like like just a straightforward, to the 1D. Is there anything additional, just like doing the, like?
No, I was just saying that I don't see any way that,
Oh,
that's
you
just how I
use
would
the-
manage the 2D to 1D.
I see,
so
got it,
work.
I see, okay.
Because I don't see how you'd make the other ones work without really either blowing up memory or how to do the calculations. You said there was some math to do that, but you'd have to have like a custom algorithm for each size.
Right, so, well, you would have to change the algorithm for the fringe. So now with the sliding one, I still think there's something in there with the sliding one, because it's not really sliding, it's just so the last block, was that what you were thinking, like just the
Yeah.
last block, it's an overlap, more than
An
sliding,
overlap.
it's like an overlapping
That's
window,
right.
right? I'm gonna rename that.
You would have some redundancy in the company.
Uh-huh,
You could have a way, if there's an assumption that all values are always positive or something like that, you could have it like filled with negative ones instead of a 0. So if you encounter a negative one, it hasn't been calculated yet, and you can store the previous overlap calculations somewhere else, although then you might start using some of your caches. And that way you don't, even though there's overlap, it's already been calculated and you have it saved, and you can just load that right away and then continue your calculations.
But then you're putting an if statement in there.
Yeah, that is putting it.
but then we have a divergence. Does
I'm
it
trying to figure out how to
matter?
do it without using it.
Does it matter that it has been calculated already?
But you're, again, you're wasting threads again. It's like the padding the solution. Because there are threads that are doing calculations that you already did.
Yeah, but we're not adding data.
Okay, we're not doing data,
Yeah.
that's right, so you're
But, I
only
mean-
wasting threads but not memory.
Right.
Yeah, just get rid of the plus equal and it might work. But no, because you're gonna have your matrix multiplied formula is basically accumulating in C. So as you slide over, you're gonna accumulate twice, 3 times, 4 times.
Oh, of course.
You're gonna get a wrong answer.
That's important.
That's why I was thinking using the flag, if you assume only
Uh-huh,
positive
uh-huh.
values, and if you fill it with negative ones instead, the negative one means it's not been filled yet, but then it's divergent.
And how do you know how many times you've gone over it? Like you filled it once, now it's got a positive data in it, and if the sliding window moves over,
Well,
now you're filling it again.
twice, right? So worst case scenario would just be twice. This is like one calculated,
The window would just be at the very end.
yeah, it's just one
There's only
window.
one little area of overlap.
So it's
on
like
that, so it's
Yeah.
31.
Here. Okay, that's terrible. Let me add it with another bright green. This is basically this. No, what am I doing? No, I'm sorry. It's not there.
I think the current green is
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so the current green, but there's so it's over here. That's where it overlaps. Yeah, so you have the normal blocks coming in from this side.
Yeah, but how do you know when you've,
You don't.
Well, if you know only that very end piece is overlap, you can just calculate these rows will be recalculated, ignore now that's another issue.
yeah, no, I'm trying to do,
Yeah, so
I'm trying to do
that's
is not
the
making a
trick, right?
decision.
So how do you?
I don't know if we can get around not making a decision, because we have to decide, has this been calculated before?
You have an implicit conditional there.
Yeah, and if we can't get around deciding if this has been calculated or not because of the plus equals part of it, then it wouldn't work without a conditional.
The assumption is that the threads are all performing the same calculation.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we couldn't have like we couldn't have like 192 threads doing the same thing and then maybe unroll the remaining 8 somehow.
But how do you know they're the last ones?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Will?
How about if you turn it into like a 2D array, and that way you'll just iterate throughout the entire matrix until like the very last bit, the very last thread that's like less than 32, and you can't just run that like separately, because that way you run the whole thing by itself, and you just
Yeah.
have this one tiny thing that has a few calculations.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Just run it and just run the dark part, and then separately run the overlapping one. Yes, there will be some wasted computations, but just like override it, like separately, right? Yeah, like a different kernel that just goes and overrides. You do have to not, like in that particular kernel, you would have to not have the plus equal, because then you'll mess it up, right? You'll just increase the value.
Right.
So you have to pretend like you're like doing it from scratch. So yeah, so that's what I was thinking. I'm not saying that that's the way to go. It's just something that I just thought about, because I had not thought about before about this backwards window. So, well, the point in here is that every strategy has a pro and a con, and the important thing is that we weigh all these concepts, to make the right decision. We can try to do our best, like planning ahead of time, and that's really a bit like one of the main objectives of this course. Like you don't just go blindly and jump into coding the problem without even looking at your hardware, without like thinking about all these constraints. And that's why I really want to do this exercise, but like to see. So we make an educated decision, we try our best, and then we profile. Yeah, so we try to profile as best as we can, and then we tune. Realistically speaking, most of the time you don't need like super fine tune everything. Depends on your application, but if I'm thinking about like a supercomputing application, like a simulation, or like something where precision is very, very important, and we need floats. We need to carry floats around. The fact that we have floats make things more difficult, because it's a bigger data type, and also GPUs, they're still slower than with floats, yeah? It's not just the amount of memory.
So,
Yeah.
Another approach would be going back to one of your other comments you made, looking at the data.
Yes, of course.
So
Of
if
course.
you can, if the data is all integer data, plug it right in a night right.
Well, I'm thinking like, wow, that's the best case.
Right?
Of course, yeah.
If it was, then you could rewrite the matrix multiply operation to squish the data into, like, you have an unsigned
Yes.
and then you squish it into the.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could do that, but if it's floating point, then
Yeah.
you're.
And I thought about it earlier, well, you guys were saying that, like we put a -1 in here and so on and so on. I was thinking, well, unsigned data type. But I also thought about bitwise operations.
Right.
Yeah, so you could like do something with bitwise operations. So you may be able to, okay, so unrelated to this, but like instead of going with, oh, we're out of time, but let me just say this. You may be able to skip some divergence, some divergence problems. Instead of the ifs, maybe you can use in some cases you could use like some bitwise operations. Yeah,
Good, bit mouse question.
you see that? Yes, like big masks, yeah.
So you could do big mass and hands to make decisions within there and they're
Right.
relatively
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah, yeah.
Now you get complicated.
Yeah, so think about that. Yeah, I mean, you cannot replace every if condition, but in some cases it's possible to do that. Yeah, so bitwise operations.
So the reason why you asked this is because we would not get an ideal situation where we have a power, features to the power of 2. The number
That's
of
right, yeah.
features.
You're never gonna have that. Yeah, so you're never gonna have a power of 2 multiple in real life. You'll be extremely lucky if you do. I shouldn't say never because statistically it's impossible, but
Yes,
you know.
there's a lot of them.
What's that?
There's a lot of them. You might have one.
What?
Powers of
Ideal?
2. Yeah, you might have the power to a lot.
Or you could deliberately reduce to the power of 1.
Yeah, I mean, statistics, right? So you guys familiar with the, oh God, what is it? There's this book called the Library of Babel, something like that. Which is this hypothetical library that contains every book in the universe. And it contains like every book that has not been written yet. It contains like a book describing your death and describing your birth. And it's just about statistics, right? So whether you come across the book, so most of them will be gibberish. But there is a very small probability that like one of them will be that.
There is a similar thing with, for example, images.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
if
yes, so this
random
is-
pixels,
Random
yeah,
pixels.
random
So the
pixels
la-
will be
the
You
everywhere.
can
Babel-
have all of the possible images in the world.
So-
Yeah,
This is-
yeah.
So that is based on that
Oh,
on
Yeah,
that book.
no, that
Yeah.
one
I
precedes
have
the other
to
for
go.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're done, let's go, let's go.
Monkeys and Shakespeare.
Oh yeah, the monkeys, the coding monkeys. That's the